Can I just confirm that you can see my screen okay? It's in the right mode?
Yep.
Cool, thanks. Okay, so a little bit of context. We're going to run through 3 main slides similarly to the captive side. So in terms of context and scaling in the livestock CRP, as many of you said, I think about half of the respondents said it's one of the most important aspects. Well, this is something that we're seeing more and more, this trend, and it's also something that our donors, our investors are making it very clear that they'd like to see us, on the one hand, more demand-led, and on the other hand, that we are able to clearly demonstrate and articulate how the investments in our research activities are actually translating into impact on the ground and at a large scale. So this area is part of the transformation that's needed to help ensure that we get better at doing that. And what we wanted to do is to have an approach to scaling that would be looking at it very holistically, so from a numbers perspective, but also how are you reaching that? Are you sustainable? Are you responsible? Are you building on existing good practices and materials and so on? So for us, when we started out, we knew that we didn't want to create necessarily new tools because there was a lot out there, but we did want to have a systematic way of looking at what's out there and assessing what would make sense in our context, our CGR context. And we came up with some guiding principles as well. One is to use existing materials and to customize them. Another is about the flexibility of having a mix and match of different tools in different stages of the research project, but also based on, for example, your donor or your context and so on. We also thought about how to embed this and how to support this. And we've come up with the use of scaling coordinators. Nicole, who will speak after me in the next slide, is our first scaling coordinator. She's also a graduate fellow at Impact at Scale, but also scaling champions within the project, and generally just how we have an agile approach where we adapt and iterate quickly and make this area more accessible to our CRP. We have done work in projects throughout the second phase of the CRP. So we have projects who are very much scaling projects where a lot of this takes place. We've also done some scaling assessments and so on in a more rudimentary way as back as 2017. But it's really in the last year or so that we've really focused our work with the Scaling Better Together framework and all the work behind it to make it more accessible. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Nicole, who will take us through some of the current scaling highlights.
Hi everyone, this is Nicole. As Iddo is sharing his screen, so you cannot see my face, but I think some of you already see me. So as from the survey we had just now, there are like more than half of the people haven't visited our mural, but don't worry, it's just a canvas that we listed all the resources and our basically just like a display of our current products and to show you what kind of work we have done on scaling, including the scaling framework and process Iddo just introduced. And also what does the process will look like and what kind of final outputs or outcomes you can expect from the scaling assessment that we do. And also more practically, we'll introduce you about what are the people get involved in the scaling projects and how many time or like how much time you're going to expect yourself and also partners to invest it in the scaling assessment process. So basically when you go through the mural, we will have the introduction and a section for introducing the framework. And we also listed the resource there as we have done 2 workshops, one in last September and the other one in last month, to introduce about the scaling framework and the process that we done to the ILRI colleagues. So please visit the blogs and the videos if you haven't been part of the workshop. And also there are 3 tools we basically used in our current process. And you can find the source there and to go through them if you're interested. And also in the section 2, we listed the steps we're using and also our current planning tool and management tool, like how we're going to run the assessment process. And so basically you can find several links and also more detailed information on the mural. And we just finished the 2 light scaling assessments for the livestock CRP in Uganda for the pig value chain and some technologies in the dairy value chain in Tanzania. But there is still work going on as we're going to do the deep dive scaling readiness assessment for the Uganda case and some follow-ups on the Tanzania side.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Nicole. I think, shall I stop sharing my screen for a minute so that everyone can see you?
Yes. Hi everyone, this is Nicole.
Great. So, thanks. Now you can see, you can put the face to the name, which is good. So let me now share my screen again so I can take you through the rest of the presentation. Okay, so hopefully you can see it in the right mode again. So I wanted to take a minute and talk about key activities planned and our ask for the scaling part as well. So here, first of all, why should you care? Why would it be of interest to you? So we think that these scaling assessments will help us on 3 levels. On the project or in the technology, innovation, solution, call it what you will, whatever your legacy is. It'll help by introducing key scaling concepts and tools to all your key members and your partners so that you can embed a scaling mindset. And the sooner you could do that in your R4D cycle, the better it is. Then it would also give you a facilitated and evidence-based approach that uses pre-vetted tools and will help you define realistic scaling ambitions and identify challenges and opportunities to get there. At the portfolio level, so in this instance, for example, the CRP or aggregating across center lines and so on, it would aggregate across the CRP portfolio in a way that's not currently possible in terms of looking at the scaling readiness of various technologies. And it could also, give us a good baseline for future activities over time in terms of what is the trend, what are the trends and how they're emerging. So some reporting and M&E insights as well. Finally, the third element is it would help support the investment case by identifying the critical areas that can unlock current challenges to deliver at scale so that those could be aligned into whatever articulation we want to do for next stages. And sorry. So in terms of what we plan to do, so our main plan is to accompany a handful of what would emerge as the main CRP's legacy product. And as part of all the work of bundling them for the next stages, we would also help them with both a scaling assessment process and then co-creating a scaling plan for the post-CRP era. So that would be one major task that we will focus on between now and the end of December. A second one is packaging a lot of communication materials around the scaling tools themselves and the approach to communicate that better, but also to make that more accessible for anyone who would want to use them. And finally, supporting individual flagship product lines, projects beyond the handful of the key CRP legacy that we'll focus on. So there are two ways to go around that. first, the framework is available. All the detailed tools are available. It's all open access. So we can guide people if anyone wants to do it themselves or work with their partners. It's absolutely possible, and we would happily guide you through the process. Alternatively, if you would want our team to help facilitate and support and run these with you, we can do so. However, it would be useful for me to clarify a little bit the process and resource requirements and so on. So it's on the slide in some timelines and time requirements. So it's also quite explicitly laid out in the mural. So hopefully you will be able to go through that and see what are the expectations of you and the timelines. But we would probably be able to put in 2 rounds of assessments. One that we'll be looking to start relatively soon, around July, August this year. And the second and final round for the CRP that could commence around February next year. We envisage the entire process from start to finish to take around 4 or 5 months, depending on availability and so on, and would cost around $35,000 US dollars for the full assessment process. So for those projects who would want to do this over and above whatever might be prioritized at the flagship or the CRP level, we'd be happy to support you in one of these 2 ways. Our ask to you is to get back to us again relatively soon, by the end of this month if possible, if you want to be included, so that we can plan our current capacity, see if it's adequate. If there's additional demand, we will see what we can do to meet that, and we have some contingencies in place for that, but we do need to know quite soon. And so as you're doing the planning for during this week until the end of the month, please keep that in mind. Please, time is running, and so do let us know so that we can move that forward. And with that, I'd like to maybe move it back to Michael for the last question of the day.